The crystal glasses clinked as champagne flowed freely at Whitecrest Tower's grand ballroom. 200 employees in their finest attire mingled beneath glittering chandeliers at the annual company gala. I stood alone near a marble column, smoothing my simple black dress, the nicest thing in my closet, yet worlds apart from the designer gowns surrounding me. "Excuse me, coming through." A server nearly spilled drinks as Camille Devereaux swept past, the CEO's daughter commanding attention in her crimson gown. She didn't notice me, she never did, until I accidentally stepped backward into her path. "Watch it," she snapped, champagne sloshing onto her wrist. Her eyes narrowed when she recognized me. "Oh, it's you." That look. I'd seen it for months. Like I was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "Sorry, Camille," I murmured, trying to sidestep away. "Wait." Her voice turned syrupy sweet as she grabbed my arm. "Everyone, have you met Brooke? Daddy's newest acquisition for the analytics team." 6 or 7 executives turned, their eyes crawling over me. I wasn't supposed to be mingling with this crowd. Employees at my level typically weren't even invited to these events. But I'd earned my place through the annual Innovation Challenge. "She's the charity case, right?" Camille's friend Isabel tilted her head, examining me like a mildly interesting insect. "Not charity, diversity initiative," Camille corrected with a theatrical whisper. Laughter rippled through the group. My cheeks burned. I'd graduated top of my class, beaten out 400 applicants for this position, and spent months proving myself. Yet here I was, reduced to a quota. "Actually, I earned my place here by..." "By what?" Camille interrupted, her voice sharp enough to slice. "Tell me, exactly what qualifications do you have that the rest of us don't? Besides being from..." She waved her hand vaguely. "Wherever it is you're from." The circle tightened. Someone snickered. "I won the Innovation Challenge," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted. "Oh yes, with that little spreadsheet thing. Daddy mentioned it." Camille rolled her eyes. "So clever of you to use templates anyone could download." "It wasn't a template. I built that algorithm from..." "Sure you did." She turned to the group. "Next she'll tell us she invented electricity." More laughter. "Really though, how did someone like you even get hired here? This is a Fortune 100 company, not a community college job fair." The room seemed to tilt. Everything I'd worked for, sacrificed for, was being trampled under Camille's designer heels. And why? Because my father wasn't the CEO? Because my dress came from a department store? Because I didn't belong to their private clubs and summer in their exclusive enclaves? My briefcase sat against the column beside me. I'd brought it because I'd come directly from finishing the project I'd been working on for months. One that would change everything. I hadn't planned on revealing it tonight, but sometimes plans change. "You know what, Camille?" I straightened my spine. "You're right, someone like me normally wouldn't be here." She smirked, victory in her eyes. "But," I continued, reaching for my briefcase, "your father didn't hire me because of where I'm from or what I look like. He hired me because of what I can do." I unlatched the briefcase with steady hands and removed a single document, 30 pages bound in a clear cover. The result of 6 months of late nights, missed weekends, and relentless analysis. "What's that supposed to be?" Camille scoffed. I didn't answer her. Instead, I scanned the room until I spotted Harold Devereaux, CEO and Camille's father, chatting with board members near the stage. "Excuse me," I said, walking directly through their circle. Camille followed, hissing, "What do you think you're doing?" I approached Mr. Devereaux with more confidence than I felt. "Sir, I apologize for interrupting, but I believe you'll want to see this immediately." He looked annoyed at first, then puzzled as I handed him the document. "What is this, Brooke?" "Something I've been working on in my spare time. Page 4 shows the projection models." His eyes scanned the first page, then flipped quickly to page 4. His expression changed instantly. He went still, then looked at me with new eyes. His hands started shaking when he read the executive summary on page 6. "Is this verified?" he asked quietly. "Triple check, sir, every figure." Camille pushed forward. "Daddy, what is she showing you?" But Harold Devereaux was already pulling his phone from his pocket. "Board meeting. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp." He turned to me. "You'll present this." "Present what?" Camille demanded. Her father didn't answer. He was already walking away, my document clutched in his trembling hands. making urgent calls. The circle of executives who had laughed at me moments before now stared with confusion and dawning respect. Camille looked like she'd been slapped. I picked up my briefcase and smiled. If you're enjoying this journey of corporate intrigue and revenge, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment about what you think was in that document. Your support helps stories like this reach more listeners. My name is Brooke Mercer, and until 6 months ago, I was nobody. I grew up in a small town where ambition was viewed with suspicion. My mother cleaned houses for the wealthy families whose children went to private schools. My father left when I was 8, leaving behind nothing but an empty closet and mounting bills. But I had something neither of my parents possessed: an uncanny ability with numbers. Where others saw random figures, I saw patterns, relationships, opportunities. Math made sense when nothing else did. I fought my way through college on scholarships and late-night waitressing shifts. When I graduated, I set my sights on Whitecrest Industries, not because it was prestigious, though it was, but because their financial analytics division was doing groundbreaking work. For 2 years, they rejected my applications. Not enough experience, they said. But really, I didn't have the right background, didn't come from the right schools, didn't have the right connections. Then they announced an innovation challenge open to the public. The winner would receive a position in the company. I spent 3 weeks developing an algorithm that could predict market fluctuations with unprecedented accuracy. I won, beating out graduates from Ivy League universities and experienced professionals. That should have been my triumph. Instead, it was just the beginning of my struggle. From day one, I was the outsider. People like Camille made sure I knew it. She had been handed a senior position straight out of college, the perks of being the CEO's only daughter. She treated the company like her personal playground and its employees like her subjects. "Don't take it personally," my only work friend, Zoe, advised over lunch one day. "Camille destroys anyone she sees as a threat." "I'm no threat to her," I said, stabbing at my salad. "We're not even in the same department." Zoe raised an eyebrow. "You don't see it, do you? You're everything she's not. You earned your place here." She didn't. I laughed it off, but Zoe's words stayed with me. Still, I kept my head down and worked harder than anyone. I arrived first, left last, and took on projects nobody wanted. 3 months in, I noticed something strange while analyzing quarterly reports. Small discrepancies, tiny enough to miss if you weren't looking for patterns like I was. Money moving between accounts in ways that didn't make sense for legitimate business operations. I brought my concerns to my direct supervisor, Patrick. "You're new here, Brooke," he said dismissively. "These are standard accounting practices." But they weren't. I knew enough about financial regulations to recognize that something was wrong. Still, I let it go. Who would believe the newcomer over established executives? 2 weeks later, Patrick presented my market analysis model to the executive team, claiming it as his own work. I sat in the back of the room, watching him take credit for my late nights and innovative approaches. "This is brilliant work, Patrick," Harold Devereaux had said. "Exactly the kind of thinking we need." Patrick nodded modestly, never once acknowledging me. That night, I nearly quit. Packed up my desk, wrote a resignation letter. But as I was leaving, I passed the executive conference room. Through the glass walls, I saw Camille arguing heatedly with her father. "You promised me that position," she shouted. "You're not ready," he replied calmly. "Not ready? I've been preparing my entire life." "Preparing isn't the same as earning, Camille." She stormed out, nearly colliding with me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, mascara slightly smudged. For a brief moment, I saw something in her I recognized. The desperate need to prove herself. That moment of empathy didn't last. The next day, my computer access was restricted. Projects were reassigned. Zoe stopped sitting with me at lunch. "What's going on?" I finally asked Patrick. He looked uncomfortable. "There's been some concern about your attitude. Camille mentioned you've been difficult to work with." That was when I understood. Camille had seen me outside the conference room. She thought I was laughing at her vulnerability, and now she was making me pay. But she had made a critical mistake. In restricting my computer access, IT had to create a new profile for me, one that accidentally gave me access to servers I never should have seen. And what I found there changed everything. Late one night, working alone, I discovered files hidden deep in the company's financial architecture. Not just small discrepancies now, but a sophisticated scheme of financial manipulation that had been going on for years. Money siphoned from investor funds, hidden in elaborate structures designed to evade auditors. And the architect of it all? The signature on every critical document was unmistakable. Camille Devereaux. She wasn't just the CEO's spoiled daughter. She was actively undermining the company her father had built, enriching herself at everyone's expense. The numbers told a story more damning than any personal vendetta could be. I spent the next months gathering evidence, cross-referencing transactions, building an airtight case. I didn't know if Harold Devereaux was involved or if his daughter was operating behind his back. Either way, the truth needed to come out. Which brings us back to that gala, the night everything changed. The night I stopped being the victim and took control of my story. As the crowd dispersed after my encounter with Harold Devereaux, Camille grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my skin. "What did you show my father?" Her voice was low, dangerous. I met her gaze steadily. The truth. Her perfect features contorted with rage. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually," I replied, "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. That's the problem." She released my arm as if burned. "This isn't over." As she walked away, I knew she was right. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next morning, I arrived at Whitecrest Tower at 7:15 a.m. The early hour meant the lobby was nearly empty, my footsteps echoing across the marble floor. The security guard nodded as I badged in. He was used to seeing me at odd hours. "Big day?" he asked, noticing my formal attire. "Could be," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The elevator climbed to the 47th floor. Board meetings happened in the Sky Room, a glass-encased penthouse with views stretching across the city. As an entry-level analyst, I'd never even been allowed on this floor before. When the doors opened, Patrick was waiting, his face a storm cloud. "What the hell did you do?" he hissed, blocking my path. "My job," I replied, trying to step around him. He moved with me. "You went over my head." "Over everyone's head." "You stole my work, Patrick. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" His face flushed. "That's how things work here. You're new. You pay your dues. You don't just skip the line because you think you're special." "Is that what Camille told you? That I think I'm special?" Something shifted in his expression. "Camille has nothing to do with this. Doesn't she? Who restricted my access? Who started the rumors about my attitude problem? Who's been trying to push me out since day one?" Patrick looked away. "You don't understand the politics here." "I understand more than you think. Now, excuse me, I have a board meeting to attend." The Sky Room was already half full when I entered. Executives in expensive suits clustered in small groups, whispering. They fell silent when they saw me, eyes tracking my movement. I recognized most of them from company photos, though they'd never bothered to learn my name. Harold Devereaux sat at the head of the glass table, my bound document open before him. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Miss Mercer," he said, gesturing to an empty chair beside him. "Please." Whispers erupted as I took the seat. This was Camille's usual place at these meetings. "Where's Camille?" asked a silver-haired woman I recognized as the chief financial officer. "Not joining us today," Harold replied curtly. "We have more pressing matters." The door opened again, and 3 strangers entered, 2 men and a woman in severe suits. They didn't introduce themselves, but the atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Several board members exchanged alarmed glances. "Before we begin," Harold said, "I want to make it clear that what Miss Mercer is about to present was discovered through her own initiative. She brought this directly to me, as was appropriate given the sensitivity of the information." He nodded at me. My mouth went dry, as 12 pairs of eyes turned my way. I opened my laptop, connected it to the room's display system, and took a deep breath. For the past 4 months, I've been tracking unusual patterns in our financial reporting, I began. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. What began as small discrepancies led me to discover a systematic effort to manipulate company finances. I clicked through slides showing transaction records, wire transfers, and shell accounts. The room remained utterly silent as I methodically laid out the evidence. Money had been moving from the company's main accounts through a series of intermediaries before landing in private accounts in the Cayman Islands. The amounts started small 5 years ago but had grown increasingly bold. In total, I concluded, approximately $87 million has been diverted from company and investor funds. The CFO's face had turned ashen. "This is impossible. Our auditors were deliberately misled. I interrupted, showing the next slide. Financial reports were altered before being submitted for review. The original data and the altered versions are compared here. Another click revealed emails and digital signatures. All roads led back to one person. As you can see, I said, all of these transactions were authorized by Camille Devereaux. The room erupted, board members talking over each other, demanding explanations. The three strangers took notes but said nothing. Harold raised his hand for silence. Miss Mercer has verified these findings thoroughly. I've spent the night with our legal team reviewing the evidence. There is no question about its authenticity. What happens now? Asked the marketing director, voice trembling. Harold nodded to the three strangers. These representatives from the Securities and Exchange Commission will be conducting a formal investigation. We're cooperating fully. The SEC. No wonder everyone looked terrified. Financial fraud at this level meant criminal charges, potentially prison time. What about Camille? Someone asked. Harold's face was a mask. My daughter's actions are her own responsibility. She'll face the consequences like anyone else. As the meeting continued around me, a strange hollowness opened in my chest. I'd won. The truth was out. Justice would be served. So why didn't it feel like victory? When the meeting adjourned 2 hours later, Harold asked me to stay behind. The sky room emptied until only the two of us remained. Why did you do it? He asked quietly. I blinked, surprised by the question. Do what? Report the fraud? No. He gestured to the document between us. This level of investigation. Most people would have reported their suspicions and moved on. You built a case that would stand up in federal court. I considered my answer carefully. When I was 12, my mother cleaned houses for a banker who was later arrested for fraud. He'd stolen millions from his clients, regular people who trusted him with their savings. When he was caught, do you know what happened? Harold waited. Nothing. He paid a fine, a fraction of what he stole, and walked away. But the families who lost everything? They didn't walk away. They lost homes, college funds, retirements. I met his gaze directly. I don't believe wealth should shield people from consequences. He studied me for a long moment. Even when that person is my daughter? Especially then, I said softly. You raised her to believe she was untouchable. That may have been your biggest mistake. Pain flashed across his face, quickly masked. You have an unusual moral clarity, Miss Mercer. Is that a compliment or a criticism? I haven't decided yet. He closed the document. There will be changes at Whitecrest following this revelation. Significant ones. I understand if my position here is untenable now. He looked surprised. On the contrary, I want you to head our new internal compliance division. Your title would be director, reporting directly to me. My mouth fell open. That's several promotions. You've more than earned it. He stood, signaling our conversation was over. Think about it. Let me know by the end of the week. I rode the elevator down in a daze. Director. A corner office. A salary likely triple what I currently made. Everything I'd worked for. So why did it feel like a bribe to keep quiet? As I exited the elevator, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Parking garage, level 3, now, come alone. My pulse quickened. I didn't need to ask who it was from. The parking garage was dimly lit, concrete pillars creating pools of shadow. My footsteps echoed as I walked toward level 3. Part of me knew this was stupid, meeting alone with someone who had every reason to hate me, but curiosity overrode caution. Camille's red sports car was parked in the corner, its engine idling. She sat behind the wheel, sunglasses on despite the garage's gloom. I approached cautiously, stopping several feet away. She rolled down the window. Get in. I don't think that's a good idea. Scared? Her smile was razor thin. You weren't scared this morning when you destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life, Camille. I just exposed the truth. The truth! She laughed bitterly, removing her sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed. You have no idea what the truth is. You saw numbers on a screen and thought you understood everything. I understand fraud. Do you understand family, legacy, expectations? She leaned toward the window. My father built this company with money he stole from his partners 30 years ago. Did your precious investigation uncover that? I faltered. That's not true. Ask him about Jenkins and Whitley, the original founders. Ask what happened to them. Her voice cracked slightly. My father taught me everything I know about business, including how to make problems disappear. My certainty wavered. Was she lying? Trying to manipulate me? Or was there truth in her words? You could have been valuable, Brooke. Smart, determined, hungry. We could have used someone like you. To help you steal more money? To help build something lasting. She started the car. Instead, you chose to be righteous. Let's see how that works out for you. Is that a threat? She smiled, but her eyes remained cold. A prediction. You think today was a victory? Check the company bylaws. The board can't remove my father without a supermajority vote. And half those board members owe their positions to him. My stomach tightened. The SEC will investigate, find some irregularities. Maybe I'll take the fall for some of it, she shrugged. But the company will survive. My father will survive. And people like you will always be disposable. She revved the engine. You had one chance to join the winning side. Remember that in the coming weeks. The car pulled away, leaving me alone in the echoing garage. My hands were shaking. For the first time since this began, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. When I returned to my desk, everything seemed normal. Colleagues typing, phones ringing. But something had shifted. People glanced my way, then quickly looked down when I caught them. Conversations hushed as I passed. Zoe approached cautiously. Is it true? About Camille? News traveled fast. Some of it, probably. And you're the one who found out? Her eyes were wide. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Why not both? I attempted a smile. She didn't return it. Be careful, Brooke. Camille has friends everywhere. And her father. He didn't get where he is by being nice. Mr. Devereaux just offered me a promotion. Zoe's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? To what? Director of Compliance. She whistled softly. That's... wow. Are you taking it? I don't know. I lowered my voice. Camille said something about her father. About how he started the company. Do you know anything about people named Jenkins and Whitley? Zoe's expression changed subtly. Where did you hear those names? Just something I came across, I lied. Were they involved with Whitecrest? She glanced around, then leaned closer. That's ancient history, before my time. But yeah, the company was originally called Jenkins Whitley Devereaux Partners. Then suddenly it was just Whitecrest Industries, with Harold as the sole CEO. What happened to them? Nobody really knows. They just disappeared from the company. There were rumors, but... She shrugged. Look, that was 30 years ago. Water under the bridge. But the water felt suddenly murky. What if Camille was telling the truth? What if I'd aligned myself against her only to become a pawn in her father's game? As if summoned by my thoughts, my computer pinged with a new email. From Harold Devereaux. Miss Mercer, please join me for dinner tonight to discuss your new position. 8 p.m., the Summit Restaurant. Car will pick you up at 7:30. Not a request, an expectation. I stared at the screen, Camille's words echoing. You had one chance to join the winning side. Maybe that chance wasn't gone after all. But which side was actually winning? And more importantly, which side was right? The Summit Restaurant occupied the entire 60th floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city lights spreading below like a blanket of stars. A host in an impeccable suit led me through tables of power brokers and celebrities to a private dining room in the back. Harold Devereaux stood as I entered, gesturing to the chair across from him. A bottle of wine was already open, breathing beside 2 crystal glasses. Miss Mercer, thank you for joining me. Your invitation didn't leave much room for declining, I said, taking my seat. He smiled slightly. Direct as always. I appreciate that quality. A server appeared, pouring wine and reciting specials in a hushed tone before disappearing again. Harold raised his glass. To new beginnings. I left my glass untouched. Before we toast anything, I have questions. Of course. He set his glass down. About the position? About Jenkins and Whitley. The change in his expression was subtle, a tightening around the eyes, a momentary stillness. Then he leaned back, studying me. Camille spoke to you. She mentioned names I hadn't heard before. Harold sighed, swirling the wine in his glass. Ancient history, hardly relevant to your future with the company. If I'm going to be director of compliance, shouldn't I know the company's full history? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Touché. Very well. Jenkins and Whitley were my original business partners. We started the firm together in the late 80s. What happened to them? Business disagreements. Different visions for the company's future. He shrugged. I bought them out. Camille suggested it wasn't that simple. Harold's expression hardened. My daughter is facing federal charges for financial fraud. I wouldn't put much stock in her version of events. So there was no theft involved? No manipulation? He set his glass down with deliberate care. Let me be clear, Miss Mercer. Those men received fair compensation for their shares. Did I outmaneuver them strategically? Yes, that's business. Did I commit fraud? No, I couldn't tell if he was lying. He met my gaze steadily, no hint of deception. Why are you really offering me this position? I asked. Because you've demonstrated exactly the skills we need. Analytical thinking, moral clarity, courage. It has nothing to do with keeping me close, making sure I don't dig any deeper. He laughed, seemingly genuinely amused. You really are extraordinary. Most people would be celebrating such a promotion, not questioning the motives behind it. I'm not most people. Clearly, he raised his glass again. Which is exactly why I want you on my team. The server returned with our first course. For the next hour, we ate and talked business. Harold outlined his vision for the new compliance division. Stronger oversight, transparent reporting, ethical guidelines with actual teeth. He sounded sincere, passionate even. By dessert, I found myself warming to him despite my suspicions. He was charismatic, intelligent, with the kind of presence that made you want to impress him. There's something else you should know, he said as coffee was served. The board has voted to remove Camille from her position, effective immediately. The company will cooperate fully with any criminal proceedings against her. My spoon paused halfway to my mouth. You're throwing your own daughter under the bus? His expression turned grave. I'm holding her accountable, as I would anyone who betrayed the company's trust. Would you expect special treatment for family? No, but then we're aligned. He smiled tightly. The announcement goes out tomorrow. I wanted you to hear it from me first. As the dinner concluded, Harold's driver took me home. The city lights blurred past my window as I processed everything. By all appearances, Harold was doing the right thing, sacrificing his own daughter to preserve the company's integrity. Yet something felt off, like a mathematical equation where the numbers didn't quite balance. When I arrived at my apartment, a package waited at my door, a sleek leather portfolio with the Whitecrest logo. Inside was an employment contract for the director position, with a salary that made me blink twice, along with a handwritten note from Harold. The future of Whitecrest awaits your signature. I placed it on my coffee table and stared at it. Everything I'd worked for was within reach. All I had to do was sign. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. The truth has a price. Are you willing to pay it? Tomorrow, 7 a.m., Central Park bench near the East Boat Landing. Come alone if you want the full story. No signature, but it wasn't from Camille. The tone was different. Who else was involved in this web? And was it a trap? Sleep eluded me. I spent hours researching, digging through old news archives about Whitecrest's founding. There wasn't much, a few business announcements, press releases about the new financial firm founded by 3 promising young analysts, Harold Devereaux, Thomas Jenkins, and William Whitley. Then, abruptly, all mentions of Jenkins and Whitley stopped. The company name changed. Harold emerged as the sole public face. No scandal, no lawsuits, just silence. I finally drifted off around 3 a.m., my dreams filled with shadowy figures and numbers that wouldn't add up. Morning came too quickly. I debated ignoring the mysterious text, signing the contract, embracing my new future. The safer choice. The smarter choice. Instead, I found myself at Central Park as dawn broke, mist rising from the lake. The bench was empty when I arrived, but minutes later, an elderly man approached, leaning heavily on a cane. Miss Mercer? His voice was gravelly, worn by time. I nodded cautiously. William Whitley. He extended a gnarled hand. Though most people have forgotten that name by now. My heart raced. One of the original founders, here in the flesh. Thank you for coming, he said, lowering himself onto the bench with a wince. I've been following your situation with great interest. How do you know about me? He smiled, revealing yellowed teeth. I may be old, but I still have friends at Whitecrest. When a young analyst starts asking about Jenkins and Whitley, word gets around. What happened between you and Harold Devereaux? Whitley gazed out at the lake, pain etching deeper lines into his already weathered face. We trusted him, Tom Jenkins and I. We were friends, the three of us. Built that company from nothing but ambition and caffeine. He described their early days. Three brilliant young men with complementary skills. Jenkins, the client relations genius, Whitley, the investment strategist, Devereaux, the numbers wizard. We were unstoppable. First year, we quadrupled our initial investment. Second year, major clients started calling us instead of the other way around. So what went wrong? Success. Money. Harold started wanting more. Riskier investments, aggressive growth strategies. Whitley shook his head. Tom and I were more conservative. We had families, wanted sustainable growth. The conflict came to a head in year 5. Harold presented documentation showing that their more conservative approach was losing clients. Numbers, projections, client feedback, all pointing to the need for his riskier strategy. We believed him. The data seemed irrefutable, so we agreed to a restructuring. Harold would take controlling interest, with Tom and me stepping back to minority partners. Let me guess, I said. The data was manipulated. Whitley nodded grimly. By the time we discovered the truth, it was too late. Harold had used his controlling interest to dilute our shares, marginalize our voices. When we threatened legal action, things got unpleasant. Unpleasant how? Tom's teenage daughter suddenly had drug problems at school. My wife's medical records were leaked to her employer. Nothing traceable to Harold, of course. My blood ran cold. He threatened your families. Never directly. Harold doesn't operate that way. But the message was clear. Fight me, and everything you love becomes collateral damage. Why are you telling me this now? Whitley's roomy eyes fixed on mine. Because you're in danger, Miss Mercer. Not the obvious kind. Harold won't threaten you. He'll embrace you, mentor you, make you feel valued, and all the while, he'll be binding you to him, ensuring your complicity. In what? The fraud didn't start with Camille. She learned from the master. He pulled an envelope from his coat. These are the original documents from our company's founding. The real numbers, not the manipulated ones Harold presented. I kept copies all these years, though they're worthless legally now. Statute of limitations and all that. I took the envelope, my hands trembling slightly. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Fear. Shame. He sighed heavily. And what would be the point? Harold won. He built Whitecrest into an empire. Who would care about how it started? I care. Whitley studied me. Yes, I believe you do. That's why I'm warning you. The promotion he's offering? It's a golden cage. What happened to Jenkins? Pain flashed across Whitley's face. Tom couldn't live with it. The betrayal, the threats. He took his own life 3 years after Harold pushed us out. My stomach twisted. I'm so sorry. Ancient history now. He stood with effort. I've done what I can. The rest is up to you. As he shuffled away, I called after him. Mr. Whitley, why now? After all these years? He turned back. Because 30 years ago, no one was willing to stand up to Harold Devereaux. Maybe today, someone is. Back at my apartment, I spread Whitley's documents across my kitchen table. They told a damning story, not just of manipulation and betrayal, but of a pattern that had continued for decades. The same techniques Camille had used were refined versions of her father's original methods. Like father, like daughter. A family business of deception. I stared at the employment contract Harold had given me, Director of Compliance. The irony was almost poetic. That's when I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I walked into Whitecrest Tower with 2 items in my briefcase. Harold's signed contract and a USB drive. His assistant showed me directly to his office. Harold beamed when I handed him the signed contract. Excellent decision, Brooke. May I call you Brooke now? Of course, sir. Harold, please. We'll be working closely together. He placed the contract in his desk drawer. The press release goes out at noon. We're announcing Camille's departure and your appointment simultaneously. Actually, I said, keeping my voice steady, I have some ideas for the compliance division I'd like to share right away. Eager to start, I like that. I removed the USB drive from my briefcase. May I? He gestured to his computer. I inserted the drive and opened a presentation titled Whitecrest Compliance Initiative. The first step in any compliance program, I explained, is establishing a baseline, understanding the company's full history. Harold nodded approvingly as I clicked through slides showing organizational structures, reporting mechanisms, oversight committees. Very thorough, he commented. Thank you, but the most important slide is this one. I clicked again. The screen filled with scanned documents. Whitley's originals side by side with the manipulated versions Harold had used 30 years ago. Harold's smile vanished. What is this? History repeating itself, I said calmly, clicking to the next slide. This one showed Camille's recent fraudulent transactions, alongside nearly identical patterns from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, all bearing Harold's digital signature. You didn't just teach Camille how to commit fraud, I said. You made her the fall person for a system you created. Harold's face hardened. Where did you get these documents? Does it matter? They're authentic. You know they are. He stood slowly. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Exactly what you hired me to do, ensuring compliance. His laugh was cold. And you think anyone will believe you? A junior analyst against the founder and CEO? They will when they see the complete record I've compiled. I met his gaze steadily, which has already been uploaded to secure servers with instructions for release if anything happens to me. You're bluffing. Would you like to test that theory? Because the SEC would be very interested in comparing Camille's methods with yours. The statute of limitations may have expired on what you did to Jenkins and Whitley, but not on everything else I've found. For a moment, rage twisted his features into something barely recognizable. Then, remarkably, he laughed. You really are extraordinary. He sat back down. What do you want? Money? A better title? Justice. Don't be naive. Everyone has a price. Mine is non-negotiable. You resign. Today. Cite health concerns, personal reasons, whatever story you prefer. The board appoints an independent CEO. Camille faces consequences for her actions. But so do you. You return every penny you've taken and establish a restitution fund for affected investors. You destroy everything I've built. No, I'd save what's worth saving. Whitecrest employs thousands of people who had nothing to do with your fraud. They deserve better than watching their company implode when this all comes out. And if I refuse? I stood, collecting my briefcase. Then by this time tomorrow, every document I have goes to the SEC, the Department of Justice, and every major news outlet. Your choice. As I reached the door, Harold called after me. You won't win this, Brooke. People like you never do. I turned back. William Whitley thought the same thing 30 years ago. That's why he gave up. I'm not giving up. The next 12 hours were the longest of my life. I waited in my apartment. Doors locked, curtains drawn, phone in hand. No calls came. No threatening visitors. Just silence. At 7 p.m., my phone finally buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Harold Devereaux announces immediate retirement from Whitecrest Industries, citing health concerns. Minutes later, a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. But it was. Harold might not have known it yet, but I'd won, because unlike Whitley, I hadn't come alone. The SEC agents who'd attended the board meeting weren't just investigating Camille, they'd been building a case against Harold for months, based on evidence I'd been quietly feeding them. His resignation was just the beginning. The golden parachute he'd expected would never open. 1 week later, I sat in the park across from Whitecrest Tower. The company's stock had stabilized after an initial plunge. The board had appointed an interim CEO, an industry veteran with a reputation for integrity. Camille had fled the country but was already the subject of an international warrant. And Harold? Federal agents had escorted him from his penthouse that morning. Mind if I join you? William Whitley lowered himself onto the bench beside me, looking less burdened than when we'd first met. It's really over, he said, wonder in his voice. After all these years. Justice is patient, I replied. What will you do now? I smiled. Exactly what Harold hired me to do. The new CEO asked me to stay on as Director of Compliance. To build something honest this time. Whitley nodded approvingly. Tom would have liked you. As he left, I gazed up at Whitecrest Tower, its glass surface reflecting clouds and blue sky. Not a prison or a monument to corruption anymore, but a place with potential for something better. My phone buzzed with a final text from Harold's number. You'll regret this. I didn't bother responding. Some people never learn that true power isn't about intimidation or wealth. It's about standing firm when everyone else gives in, about doing what's right, especially when it's hard. That's a lesson worth remembering. If this story of corporate intrigue and justice moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of resilience and redemption. I'd love to hear in the comments, what would you have done in Brooke's position? Would you have taken the promotion or fought for justice? Your support helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. Remember, sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about getting even, it's about standing tall.